Welcome, everybody. The AAUW of Worthington, Ohio is very happy to have all of you here to hear our speakers, Farrell and Fadi, who were here a year ago and talked to us then. And after hearing them, I told the AAUW, which I'm a part of, about the program, and they wanted to hear you too, or hear them too. And so I asked Westerwood if we could bring them back again this year, and they kindly said yes. And so I'm thankful to Westerwood to have us all here today to hear Farrell and Fadi. And I think they'll tell some of the same things that they told last year, but also add on with things that have occurred over the past year since they were here. This is being recorded. You are seeing this on Zoom. These are people from the AAUW who don't like to drive at night, who are watching the program from their homes. So if you're wondering what's going on up there on the screen, that's what that is. So I will hand this over to Michael to introduce our speakers, since he has been friends for a number of years. And he was the one who first introduced me to our speakers when he brought them here last year.
Thank you, Barbara. I must explain, I've got surgery coming up on Wednesday. I don't want to take any risks, so it's prophylactic, I guess I'd say. I'm Michael Greenman, and I'm a member of the Entertainment and Special Events Committee of Westerwood, and we're starting on a sort of a new era right now, where we want to present not only entertainment for the enjoyment of our residents in the evenings, but also other kinds of events like speeches and documentary films, perhaps, that our residents would like to be informed about. So I would invite anybody who is a resident, as you come up with ideas for somebody or some topic you'd like to hear about, whether it's health related or otherwise, let the committee know. My wife, Donna Greenman, along with Vicki Aslett and Charlie Robinson are the leaders, and a couple of other people are helping, and that can increase as we go along. So thank you, Barbara, for facilitating this. This is an experiment in a way, because the American Association of University Women, as you heard, is sponsoring this, and they are filming this and broadcasting it to people out there, who knows where. They could be anywhere in the world, actually. And at the same time, over here on the side, with my little iPad, I'm on a separate Zoom connection, but recording it so that we might be able to post this sort of film on our website or somewhere that we will be told about, and allow the residents who couldn't be here, if they're interested, to see the event. So that's what I'm doing here, and I'm delighted to introduce Farrell Brody, who I've known for 20-something years, and appreciate very much his experience, his skills, and everything about him. He has a bachelor's degree in English from Franklin and Marshall College, and 2 masters, one from the Instituto de Filología Hispánica in Mexico, and another from the University of New Mexico. He's lived and taught English and Spanish in Israel, Mexico, and the United States for more than 60 years. For 18 years, he taught ESL in international students, to international students, and English composition and Spanish to US students in Ohio. He was a member of the New Jewish Agenda and one of the founders of the Jewish Voice for Peace Central Ohio chapter. He was a Zionist in the mid-50s and early 60s, until realizing the truth and becoming an activist for Palestinian liberation ever since. We're also pleased to welcome and present again Fadi Suleiman, a Palestinian-American, born and lived in Palestine until he was 18 years old, studied industrial and systems engineering at the Ohio State University, and worked at Honda North America for 13 years in various engineering and management roles, currently residing in Dublin with his wife Stasia and 2 kids, Aya and Hamza, active member of Jewish Voice for Peace in Central Ohio, and also member of the Noor Islamic Cultural Center. He's had several speaking engagements at various churches in Central Ohio. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Which of you will be starting? Farrell, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. We are honored to be here for the AAUW. We thank you, especially Barbara Martin sitting right here, and thanks to Michael Greenman very much for the introduction. Well, we're especially glad to be here tonight. You know, it's International Women's Day today. So that's a special occasion, really, for us as well. Speaking of women, I would like to read a little piece here from a very important woman internationally. And it goes like this. Israel has turned an entire population into a laboratory of guinea pigs on whom weapons and techniques could be tested and then sold globally. Even if it stopped committing crimes today, it would have already put the entire human rights system in danger. Israel must be held accountable for what it has done to the Palestinians and to the world. That's from Francesca Albanese, who is a United Nations rapporteur on Palestine. I'm Farrell Brody, a Jewish member of Jewish Voice for Peace. And in a moment, you'll hear from Fadi Suleiman, who is a Muslim member of Jewish Voice for Peace. If that sounds a little unusual, it's because Jewish Voice for Peace has many members who are not Jewish. And the reason for that is that we are all together, all about struggling, fighting, educating about the situation in Palestine, and with the hopes, of course, that someday all the people in Israel, Palestine will be able to live in peace. But we don't believe that can happen during the time that the government of Israel, not all Israelis, but the government of Israel and the majority of Israelis follow the idea of a settler colonialist policy based on the idea of Zionism. And we can talk more about what Zionism is and the difference between Zionism and Judaism. I'll just say that Judaism is a religion, just like Islam is a religion, Christianity is a religion. But Democrats or Republicans, those are politicians, that's politics. Okay, so Zionism is politics. Judaism is a religion. And we can go into that. I know both of us will as we go along. Let me tell you a little bit about what happened to me. As a young person, I was 19 years old when I first went to Israel. And I thought I was going to do something really very, very good, very positive for Jewish people. I volunteered to work on a kibbutz, a collective settlement, and the government sent me to a kibbutz on the Gaza Strip, right opposite the city of Khan Yunis, which has received a lot of bad informational news over the last couple of years because of the attacks, the bombing, the constant bombing, and really the destruction of everything there. I went to the kibbutz and I spent 2 years there working as a farmer, driving a big tractor, a big D4 tractor. And I was given a rifle and told that while I was driving the tractor, if I saw anybody in the field that was not a member of the kibbutz, obviously, who had come across the border, I should shoot, kill that person. I wasn't very happy with that, but at that time, as a young kid, I thought that this was something I had to do. It was helping, the state of Israel become something that the Jewish people might want. After 2 years, I left there. I came home. I finished college. I went on to grad school for a couple of years. And then I decided, I'm not finished thinking about what Israel is and what it really means to me. So I'm going back. And I went back as a teacher. And I got a job as an English teacher in a small agricultural high school north of Tel Aviv, Israel. And in that school, there were a few Arab Palestinian students, just a very few, who were given special scholarships by the Israeli government, but with the idea that those kids would become really important leaders in their own communities, and they would never go in any way against the government of Israel. I had two of those students in my English class, one of whom, Muhammad, was the best student in the class. He loved English. He wanted so badly to learn English, so he became the best student in that class of about 18 Israeli Jewish kids and 2 Muslim Arab Palestinian kids in the class. Here's the main part of the story. At the first time when the grades came out for the quarterly results, Muhammad got the only 10. 10 was the highest score in Israel, like an A. Only one Israeli kid got a 9. None of them got 10s. Muhammad was the best one in the class. That same evening that the grades came out, I lived on the school grounds. It was a farm, really, an agricultural school, and I lived on the grounds. And I had a little room there. And that same evening, I hear this knock on the door, my front door. I open the door and I see about 8 or 9 of the Israeli kids standing there. And I said to them, "What's going on?" And they said, "Teacher, we have to speak to you." "Okay, fine, come on in." So they all came in. They weren't in a very nice frame of mind. It looked to me as something was serious here. And I said, "Okay, what's going on?" They said, "Well, you gave Muhammad a 10, and none of us, you put him above all of us." And I said, "Well, he got the 10 because he deserved it. You want to see the papers?" "No, that's not the point, teacher. The point is you can never put those Arabs ahead of us because they're not really human." That was quite a shock for me. I had sensed a lot of racism among the Israelis, but I had never really been confronted that directly by a bunch of young people. And it was the beginning of a new kind of consciousness in my mind. Something here is not what I, as a Jew, always thought Israel would become. A prophetic vision. Judaism has a prophetic vision of what people should become and what we should do in this life. It's called, part of it is called Tikkun Olam. You got to fix the world. That's the prophetic vision. And this was not that. This was the opposite of that. And so that was the beginning of my real change and the beginning of my attempt to educate myself about the history of Israel, what Zionism meant, and it was really a total change in my life. So I will stop with that, and we'll listen to Fadi and see what he has to say about his experiences. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Fadi Suleiman, or Suleiman as we say it here. I was born in Palestine, in a city called Ramallah. It's about 10 minutes outside Jerusalem. Well, it takes 2 hours to get there, but it's 10 minutes now. My mom and dad lived in Youngstown, Ohio, for about 25 years or so. 6 kids, 2 of them were born in Youngstown. And as we, I think back in the 75 to 78, somewhere there, my parents moved back. We had a house back there, and they settled there. So we lived there until high school. After high school, every single one of us was essentially, my dad said, this is not a place where you can go to school. Time to go back to the US. Where do you go? You go to Ohio State. Why? Just go there. No reason, whatever, that's fine. That's what your dad says, you just do it. So we 6 siblings went to Ohio State, all graduated from here, different degrees, from medical school to engineering to biology to something in between. And then we spread out. I have a brother in Iowa, and then 4 in Michigan, unfortunately. We had one sister. She's the youngest, so she's the most spoiled, but she lives there now. She also went to Ohio State. So I live in Dublin, 20 minutes from here. My wife is Stasha. My wife is an interesting experience. She's a half Polish, half American. Her mom's from Logan, Ohio, but they've been residing in Upper Arlington for forever. I've been to Poland a few times to visit her family there. Very nice country. And got 2 kids, 5 and an 8. Took them with me a couple of times to Palestine. So been living here since I came here when I was 18. Went to Ohio State, graduated, worked at Honda in Marysville for about 13 years as an engineer, and then left corporate America. I've been have my own business in commercial real estate development. So since 2013. My story in Palestine is very interesting. Really, it's hard to kind of unravel what you experience when you live in Palestine. It's very complex. But it's also, give me a good perspective on life. When you're there and you come here, you know what you're missing. Like when you're there for so long, you think everything that you go through is normal. To go from Ramallah to Jerusalem is 10 minutes, but it takes you 2 hours. Why? Because of Israeli checkpoints that are just all the way from Ramallah to Jerusalem. Every car they stop, every car they, inspect, every passenger they check. If for whatever reason, soldier discretion, they don't want you to go through, they'll tell you to go back and turn around and go back where you came from. No reason given. So most of the time, the Israelis don't allow Palestinians to visit Jerusalem unless they're 50 and above. They change it every so often, sometimes 55, sometimes 45. But practically speaking, most Palestinian youth, they can't go to Jerusalem. But if you're an American, you can go, no problem. If you're Palestinian-American, same situation, you cannot go. So when I go, and we went in 2021, I believe, or 2022. I took my wife there. That was her first visit. She's never been there. That was her second visit, sorry. First visit was 2017. And her second visit, my brother, he is American, not Palestinian-American. I'm dual citizen. He's not. So for him, he can go to Jerusalem in and out, no problem. But I couldn't. So it's like, Fadi, just get in my car. We'll try to get in there. I said, listen, I'm not going to go through this long line of cars at every checkpoint and then just realized that some soldier says just go back. Let's just get in the car. So we got in the car and we got to my wife was with me, and we got to one of the checkpoints, and they took his passport. Okay, my wife's passport, American, no problem. This guy's passport, first of all, they know because they have a computer system. So they put my name in. I gave them the American passport. They're like, "Where's your Palestinian passport?" I said, "Oh, well, here it is." I mean, I didn't want to give it to them, so here it is. So they took it to say, "Well, you shouldn't be here." So we all had to go back. So why is that? Question: why do you not allow me to go to Jerusalem? There's no answer. There's no. It's a blatant example of, you versus them, American, non-American, Palestinian versus not Palestinian. Pretty much you do what they tell you. But my first experience for my wife as an American, it was a shocker for her. So in 2017, 8 month pregnant, I said, "You want to go see my family?" She's like, "Yeah, I'd love to." So we went there. Another fun fact for you: Palestinians up until 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, they couldn't fly to Tel Aviv. Palestinians can't fly to Tel Aviv. Palestinians have to go to Jordan. From Jordan, you cross the border through Israel, and then you're able to go to your hometown. Americans like you, my wife, my other brother who was just, one passport, can go to Tel Aviv. So for me, I had to go to Jordan. So my wife is like, "Oh, I'm not going to go to Tel Aviv on my own. I'll go with you." So she came with me, and she regretted that. She's like, "Oh my God." So she came, we went through Jordan, we landed in Amman, we drove, you take an hour and a half to get to the Israeli-Jordanian border. You clear the Jordanian immigration, then you clear the Israeli one, then the Palestinian one. So we finished the Jordanian one very easy. The Israeli one, because she was 7 months or 8 months pregnant, there's a pass called VIP pass. So you get this VIP pass, you buy it for $100 per person. You sit in this nice air-conditioned lounge. It's still there. Every time I go, I do the same thing. And because usually in the summertime it's really, really hot, conditions are not working very well. And with a pregnant woman, she's already not feeling good, might as well smooth it out. So we went through the VIP, she sat there. We went through the immigration line, and they asked me a few questions. They asked her a few questions, and they said, "You guys go sit over there." We sat down. 1, 2, 3, 4 hours. We're still sitting there. So things, you get antsy. Like, what's going on? They're like, "Well, we're checking into her records." So they come back and ask her multiple questions. She answers them about her ancestors in Poland, who they are, who's the grandpa, who's the grandma. She doesn't even know these answers. She doesn't know these people. She may know the first name, but not the last name or the spelling. Nonetheless, 4 or 5 hours into it, they're like, "Well, sorry, she can't go in." And I say, "Why can't she go in?" They're like, "Well, because the only way for you to bring her in is if you pay a deposit." I said, "What kind of deposit is that?" They're like, $50,000. I said, "Just to let her in?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Why is that?" Because they want to guarantee that she'll come back out. I said, "Why would she not come back out? You can give her a visa for 2 weeks. Both are going to be in and out in 2 weeks." They're like, "That's the rule. You have to pay the deposit." So I said, "Whatever, I'm not going to mess with these soldiers." So I called my mom and my dad in Ramallah. I said, "Listen, here's the situation. I'm going to take her back to Jordan, put her in the plane, ship her back, and I'll come back on my own, much easier." They're like, "No way. She's already here. She needs to come in." I said, "But I'm not going to pay them $50,000. She's like, "Well, talk to them, figure it out." So I said, "Okay." So I started haggling with that soldier. He goes back and forth with his boss, and we went from 50,000 to 10,000. That's the negotiation, because the maximum you can bring in is 10,000 anyways, $10,000. So I said, "Okay." So we agreed to 10,000. Because now we're talking about hour 6 or 7. I said, "Okay, here's the 10,000 that I have on me." He's like, No. I want your mom from Ramallah to go to this Israeli settlement. Every town there's a settlements there, a Jewish settlement. You go to that Israeli settlement, you pay the money there, have the Israeli soldier in that settlement to fax us the receipt that they received it, and then we'll let her in. My mom is 75 years old. She's not going to do all that stuff. I mean, that's what I figured. So I called her and said, hey, that's what they're asking for. Don't worry about it. I'm just going to take her back. She's already tired. I'm tired. She said, no, me and your dad are going to go. We're going to pay that, and we'll fax the receipt. She did. She went, faxed the receipt over. They got the receipt. They come over. They say, okay, we got the receipt. Now you can take your wife and go in. I said, how do I get the money back? They're like, oh, let me get back with you. So the soldier comes back and says, we'll give it to you when you leave. When we have an exit stamp on the visa, we'll give it to you. I said, okay, but I'm exiting with my wife, but the money was paid to you in Ramallah, in the Israeli settlement, not here. My mom paid it to you. How are you going to give my mom the money back? They're like, oh, let me get back with you. So he goes and comes back and says, your mom have to go after you leave. She takes a proof that your wife have left. She goes to that same settlement, shows them the documents, and they'll give her the money back. So I said, okay, can you write that down? So he wrote, I have a piece of paper in Hebrew. I have no clue what it says, but I just had him write something that he will give me the money back after she leaves. So that was 2017. Fast forward 2025, I've never seen the money. We went, tried to give the money maybe a dozen times. Last time my mom was like, Fadi, listen, I'm too old for this stuff. I can't just keep going in and out. They talked to me rudely. And the last time I went there, the soldier said, I'm going to keep you coming back every year and you still never see the money. And she felt like humiliated. She's like, if you want the money, she told me, if you want the money, you go get it. I said, Mama, you gave it to them. I can't get it. She's like, well, I'm not going. So that money is gone. My wife, when she was sitting there in the border, and I'll finish with this. She was in that VIP room. There was a female Jewish soldier in the room. She saw her crying and pregnant and upset and heat and tired. She said, my wife is asking the soldier, why are you doing this to me? I did nothing wrong. It's my first time here. She looked at her and said, I am sorry to tell you, we did this because you came in with him. If you came in by yourself and you went through that line and you went by himself through that line, would have been no problem. But now you're guilty because you came in with him, even though you did nothing wrong. She's like, so still, why? She said, well, also we're trying to protect you because he can take you in there, and that's what she said. So my wife is not stupid. She's like, listen, if my husband's gonna kill me, he would kill me in a much bigger country where there's like, parks everywhere, and he can bury me in an oil field somewhere or in some park, and nobody will ever know. Why would he kill me in a much smaller country where everybody knows everybody? So the argument of why we're not going to allow you to do something is stupid. They just throw these things as obstacle for progress, and they throw these things, honestly, it's a very clear indication of your skin color or your name does not really blend with what we want, and accordingly, we're going to treat you differently. It's an everyday life, from schools to food to going to a town that's 2 minutes away that takes you 20 minutes to get there. We've lived that life for 18 years, and at some point you realize you really can't change the occupation. The occupation is there. The occupation delivers a message to the outside world that these people are evil, and we're trying to control them. We're trying to clean them. We're trying to cleanse them. They're the problem, not the Israeli government is the problem. They keep saying the Palestinians are the ones who are really attacking Israel. But nobody asks, why are the Palestinians attacking Israel? Why are the Palestinians mad? There must be a reason. It just doesn't naturally happen that 7 million Palestinians are crazy. There is some reason why things happen. And the reason is a lot of it is really the discrimination that takes place on a daily basis. They go to any school, they shut it down. I went to a Quaker school, not a public school. The public schools, the Israeli army comes in, closes any public school anytime when they want. And you can't see anything. There'll be no school for months. The kids will love it. The parents don't love it. So my dad was a farmer, spent $1,000 a year, which is a lot of money back then, for 6 kids to put them in a Quaker school built by the Quakers from Pennsylvania in 1901. The only American Quaker school in Palestine happens to be in Ramallah. Mostly American teachers, and then they have few non-American teachers from India and Australia. They come in for a year and teach, and they go back. But most people went to a Quaker school. Why? Because the Israelis would not shut it down, but they will shut down the public schools. So we were able to learn English there and graduate and move on with our life, where most others don't have that luxury, because my dad just happened to afford to pay $1,000 a year back then, where most can't afford that. So, but closing the schools, that's a common thing that took place. Discrimination against you going anywhere. I don't know if you guys know, but obviously right now it's a big thing, the hostages in Gaza. Seems like it's a big deal. Yeah, you know what? You can ask me if it's a big deal or not. I can tell you it's not a big deal. There are hostages in Gaza, no problem. There's 10,000 Palestinian hostages in Israeli jails. Why does nobody talk about them? What's wrong with the Palestinian hostages in Israeli jails and the Israeli hostages in Gaza? Why are they not the same? You have to ask yourself that question. 10,000 Palestinians in Israeli jails. Nobody cares about them. And the Palestinians want them freed. A lot of them did nothing wrong. 12-year-old, 16-year-old, a mom, a dad, a grandpa, most of them have done nothing wrong. And they've been in jail under what they call administrative detention. What does that really mean? The Israeli law allows them to take any Palestinian, put them in jail for 6 months at a time, renewable, with no claim and no trial. And you can go for years under administrative detention and nobody can say anything. So what happened in October 7 is a direct relation to that problem. Many Palestinians are dying in Israeli jails because poor conditions, no medical treatment, Red Cross can't get to them, the families have not seen them in a long time, and yet they've been ignored. But now everybody's making a fuss about the Israeli hostages, and they're saying they want them released. Well, where's the Palestinian hostages? Why didn't you care about them? It goes to show, that the level of caring is very much focused on one group and not the other. It's as if they're preferred, as if they're better. And that's not really what humanity should be. I think everybody is the same. Most of the time, they should be the same. So if there's a conflict, you should be treating people fairly and trying to actually resolve it in a fair way and not treat one side above the other. I'll end with that.
I brought along a list of the parts of the Fourth Geneva Convention. And I made copies of this. If anyone is interested in just looking at this and seeing all of the parts of the convention, human rights parts, I have copies, for most of you. By the way, Israel has violated every single one of these rights, every one. The occupation is illegal. It's always been illegal, right? According to international law. But Israel doesn't care. They don't care about international law at all. And the United States government, pretty much, certainly in the last years with Democrats, Republicans, doesn't matter. They don't care either. Even when they do speak, maybe not now, but maybe in the last group of leaders of our country spoke about human rights in the Ukraine. Okay. What about human rights in Palestine? Oh no, that's different. Palestine is different. We call people like that PEPs, P-E-P-S, progressive except for Palestine. Palestine, no. That's what they do. Now, most of you, I believe, are Americans. You know what settler colonialism is, don't you? The history of our country. Settler colonialism is always racist. It has to be racist. Because when one group says we're going to come in there and take over and get rid of you, the native inhabitants of that country, because we are superior, that's racism. So I don't have to go on anymore about settler colonialism. In the case of Zionism, if you read the original documents over, say, the first 20 years of Zionism, which began in 1896, Jews were never interested in going back and taking over as a nation state. They were not interested in doing that. But this small group of so-called Zionists, that's what they had as a plan. In fact, they had a name for the plan, Plan Dalit. Dalit is the fourth letter, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalit, the Hebrew alphabet. Plan Dalit. And in the beginning, they already said we were going to go there and move the inhabitants out as quietly as we possibly can. Well, it wasn't so quiet in 1948 when the Israelis took over as a new nation and immediately began to send Palestinians out. 750,000 Palestinians were moved out, and many of them were killed who were not moved out. This is the real history. I think that if you want to ask us questions about why we believe this, we are here to answer your questions about that, about why we feel this way. Why, as a Jew, do I feel this way? Well, Jewish Voice for Peace is a national organization now, a very large national organization, and young Jews are growing into a new idea about what Israel really is and what it is not. And that's our purpose, to educate and to try to change things, try to make some kind of peace in the future, especially for Palestinians who have suffered really terribly for 100 years. If you're interested in a book about that by a Palestinian, you can read Khalid Rashidi's book that came out last year called 100 Years of War on Palestine. Very good book. I brought a couple of other books just to show you something. If you go to the library, you might find these. One is On Palestine, and that's by the two authors together, Noam Chomsky, you may know, and Ilan Pappé, who is an Israeli, who is now a professor now in England. Ilan Pappé is very famous for his criticisms of Israel. And this one is called What Does Israel Fear from Palestine by Raja Shehadeh. And this one, the last one, is a famous book by Edward Said, The Question of Palestine. Very, very fine book. He was professor finally in New York.
What was decided on when Yasser Arafat and Anwar Sadat shook hands when Jimmy Carter was there? What was decided on and why did it fall apart?
Right now, well, now or before, the biggest tickling issue that is, anytime there is peace negotiation, back in 70s, 80s, 90s, and since the last 15 years, there's been no negotiation. But the Palestinian government they have tried to negotiate with the Israeli government in good faith. What they realized that there's really not much good faith from the Israeli government here. Why? Because the Israeli government has been, and if you look at the facts, has been building settlements in the West Bank forever. Like my hometown, they have at least 4 settlements that surround it. And they built freeways that connect those settlements together. And the Palestinians, all discrimination or not, they can't drive on those freeways. They take the land from the Palestinians, they kick the Palestinian people out, they bring in Jewish folks from the outside world. There was some another 200 people that arrived a few weeks ago from Ukraine, Belarus, Boston. I saw some, the list of where they came from. Families, and they come in, they take, these strategically located areas in these hills, and they put an Israeli settlement. That settlement becomes actually a town over a few years, where they have factories, they have McDonald's. That's why there's a lot of boycotts against McDonald's and other companies. And when they put them everywhere, displacing the Palestinians, what they're essentially doing is making the Palestinian future country not contiguous. You cannot make a contiguous country where for me to go to my school, I have to go through another country, another border, another checkpoint, another freeway. So they fragmented the Palestinian land so many ways. If you see it in real life, your jaws will drop. So when you want to make a peace with Sadat and Palestine, with anybody, it doesn't matter who the mediator even is, because America's not a fair mediator. America is favoring Israel all the time. But if you bring in supposedly a fair mediator, that fair mediator, when he looks at practicality, you just can't do it. For you to unplug 500,000 Jewish settlers from the West Bank, you're calling for a war against the Israeli government. These Jewish settlers came from the world to settle in the West Bank, believing that Judea and Samaria is theirs. So now you want to unplug them? Good luck with that. And they're the one who put the Israeli government where it belongs. They are the one that voted for someone like Bibi Netanyahu and others. The Israeli government is a very radical government, right-wing government. Voted by who? These settlers who believe in Zionism, that this is our nation, this is our land, you don't belong there. So if you want to make a peace with the Palestinians, rule number 1, as the international world has agreed to, it has to be on the 1967 border. So that means you have to unplug all of these settlements out. No way, Jose. That's number 1. Number 2, East Jerusalem. Everyone says East Jerusalem is for Palestine, West Jerusalem is for Israel. Israel continues to build settlements in East Jerusalem. They confiscate Palestinian homes in East Jerusalem. They control every inch of East Jerusalem, and they're not willing to let go. So how can you sit down and negotiate? Negotiate means you go back and forth. And if the world says East Jerusalem is theirs, this is yours, I would suppose you want to play ball. They don't play ball. So all the negotiations have always failed when it came to settlement, because they will not be unplugged. East Jerusalem, a capital for Palestine, no way with the Israeli government. And the third biggest one is Palestinian refugees. Palestinian refugees, there's about, they say, 1.5 million that live in Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and scattered around the world. These people want to go back. Israel says they're not coming back. Because if you bring in 1.5 Palestinians back, the demographics shift. Now you go from 7 million Palestinians, 7 million Israelis, to a lot more Palestinians, and the Israelis are not having babies fast enough to bring their population up. See what I'm saying? So the big deal is refugees. Israel said the refugees will not come back. And now obviously they want even to kick more Palestinians out of Gaza if they can, ship them, whatever, to Egypt or Jordan. So any negotiation that takes place, it cannot address these problems. It's not a negotiation. Because if you look at the map, the Palestinians have given up, not by choice, by force, they were forced, out 80% to the West Bank. It's gone. So they're living on 20%. And I'll tell you, 10 years from now, there'll be like 5%, not much left. So they keep squeezing them. So Palestinians are building homes. When I go back, it's crazy. They're building homes on any inch of land they find. If you lose your house on that, hill, you have to live out somewhere. So they go build a house, buy a piece of land, and they build a house on, somewhere. Because there's no government, Palestinian government per se, they're building houses randomly because they want to live. And what the Israeli government does, they come and say, oh, this is not legally built. They demolish it. Well, when I apply for a permit, you're not giving it to me. So how can I live? Well, go live in a tent. They don't care. So they're demolishing what they call illegally built homes, which they will never approve for you to build anyways. So that's the issue is as they squeeze Palestinians in less and less space and build more of the Jewish settlements, Palestinians have no place to go. The strategy is to kick them out. If you choke them, like in our case, every single one of us left. Smart. If you keep choking them, keep choking them, the idea is they'll get desperate, they leave. It's not happening now because people had enough. Like, we're not leaving whether it's Gaza or the West Bank. But the principle is you cannot negotiate when you're just one-sided negotiation. That's why all these negotiations have always failed.
Israel, if you read really carefully, Israel has never really wanted to give anything in those negotiations. They've always kept this. Even the best of the governors, the prime ministers of Israel, they've always in the back of their heads is no, we're not going to allow this to happen. By the way, those demolition of homes, then the Palestinians have to pay for the demolition. They have to pay for it after their houses have been demolished. They're required to pay for the whatever it costs to demolish them.
So now what the Palestinians are doing is, you're going to bring the Caterpillar is a big problem. Caterpillar, this big, massive U.S. company, sells Caterpillar bulldozers to Israel all the time. There's a worldwide campaign to boycott Caterpillar. Why? Because you should not sell bulldozers to an army that's bulldozing innocent people's houses. Different issue. But the Palestinians are realizing that, you're going to bring in a bulldozer to demolish my house, and then I have to pay a fee for you demolishing my house. Let me demolish my house on my own, so I can at least save the fee. So now they're demolishing their own homes on their own, so they can at least save that 20,000 shekels, whatever that fee is, for demolishing the house.
Yes.
Can you talk about Hamas at this time and bring us up to date on what's happening there and why the Palestinians let Hamas run the country?
Good question. So Hamas came to existence back in 1987, I think, 88, 87. And it came into existence just in the same time all the other Palestinian factions came into existence. So Hamas is just one. There's 7 other factions that you don't hear of. So don't think it's just Hamas. Hamas happens to just rise to prominence faster than the others. They're all there. They came into existence. That's really important, context, because the Israeli army, when it was occupying Gaza back in the 80s, they actually ran over. There was an event where a bulldozer or a Israeli military truck killed several Palestinians. So when that happened, just people walking the street, when that happened, there was an uprising. The uprising in Arabic is called Intifada. That was the uprising. That was the first one, and there was a second one, third one afterwards. These movements got established. That's when they came about. Because now you're trying to fight someone who is literally killing innocent people in the streets, not doing anything. So Hamas came to prominence. The Palestinians, for the last so many years, since the 80s, don't look at what happened in October. Just go back. Start with the 80s. The Palestinian Intifada was a civil uprising. They have never shot a gun. They don't have guns. They never had guns. It was a civil uprising. I lived it. So what the civil uprising means, they're just demonstrations in the street for human rights. Throwing rocks, that's the extent of it. That's all they had. They throw rocks at the Israeli tanks. What can you do as far as damage? Not a whole lot. But if you're 12-year-old, you're throwing rocks at an Israeli tank, you're into jail, administrative detention, you'll never leave. So that took place, that didn't go anywhere. That uprising went from throwing rocks to stabbing. They started stabbing Israeli soldiers. That went from where? From stabbing to getting guns, smuggling guns, what have you, so they can defend themselves. The amount of Palestinians who got killed over the last so many years were thousands and thousands. So the Palestinians had to find a method to try to balance it out. Right or wrong, you can decide. But they had to find a way to balance it out. They went towards guns. They don't have guns, so they tried to make homemade guns or what have you. You have an army that's fully equipped with weapons, country that has nuclear weapons, backed by the West all day long, and a civilian population that has absolutely nothing. So what happened is at that point, the Palestinians started to look for leadership in their resistance movement. Hamas had the best leadership for one reason. One reason. They actually cared about the people more than some of the other corrupt entities that were running the Palestinians. What they call Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO, it's essentially a bunch of puppets. The US pays the money, they do whatever the US wants. Israel pays the money, they do whatever they want. But the independent Palestinians did not, and will not be puppets. So those are the ones, George Bush back in 2000 and I don't know, whatever the last, George Bush, the son, when he asked and said, we want to have elections in the Middle East. Let's have elections. They had elections. And who won the elections in Palestine? Hamas won. Ask yourself why. The people voted for Hamas, not anybody else. What did America do? America was not happy. I thought you wanted to have elections. People voted for Hamas. The Palestinian Christians in Ramallah, my hometown Ramallah is mostly Palestinian Christians. They voted for Hamas. The Palestinian Christians in Bethlehem voted for Hamas. Why? Hamas is basically saying, we want to resist the occupation. Occupation kills me, I have to resist. You can't stand still. Now, you may not like the resistance, but do you like the occupation? Do you like the occupation? How long can you expect the Ukrainians to sit and watch the Russians attack their country and do nothing? You have to ask yourself that question. Replace the Ukrainians with Hamas. Just replace them. Would you allow Hamas and Ukraine to fight the Russians? Yes or no? Ask yourself and you can decide. I'm not here to decide for you. But you have to draw analogy from other conflicts. Ukraine is no different than Palestine. Same problem. It's only been going on for 3 years. Palestine for 75 years. Big difference. The Ukrainians got weapons from everywhere, and nobody's calling the Ukrainians terrorists. They're sending drones into Russia. Nobody's saying anything bad. Palestinians are not. They're trying to defend themselves. Do the Palestinians justify killing innocent Israelis? Absolutely no. But withdraw from my land. Leave me alone and give me my rights. In our hometown, I tried to get a hold of my mom. My dad passed away a few years ago, so my mom's living there by herself. I called for every day for a week. I can't get a hold of her. We have a Vonage phone, like basically a US phone that has a US number over there. So we call and the phone is not going through. So I called my brother. I said, what's going on? He's like, I don't know, maybe the phone is bad, something's, it's not working. 2, 3, 4, 5 days, she's not answering. I'm like, something happened to my mom, and now we've got to figure it out. Magically, she calls me, says, sorry, I saw that I called her on her cell phone, and she didn't answer. So she called me back. I said, Mom, why are you not answering the home line? She said, because there's no electric, and there is no internet. I said, why there's no internet? She said, the Israelis cut the power. I'm like, how long? She's like, it's been like this for a week. I had to empty the freezer and throw everything away. All the meat is in the trash. So when we go back, talk to my wife. She takes showers. You know, here you can take a shower every day, all day long. Over there, you can take a hot shower on Mondays, because the Israeli army turns the hot water on Monday. If you don't take that shower on Monday, tough luck, you can wait till the week after. How do you justify that? I mean, how do you, I mean, in human sense, the Russians are not doing that to the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians at least can have showers, they can have food. It's coming from Poland, it's coming from, you know, Scandinavian countries. Over there, you can't even have a shower every day, even if you want. Why? Because they divert the water to the Israeli settlements, and they give it to you only on Monday. So there's no way to justify killing anybody by either side. But you have to look at the root causes of that problem, and it's caused agony for so long. So now, unfortunately, it's spun out of control.
I would like to just say on that, thank you. People say, doesn't Israel have a right to defend itself? Actually, they don't. The occupier has no right to defend itself. According to international law, the occupied people have a right to defend themselves. They're occupied. Think about that. And think about, you know, Native Americans. Where were they put? Into small areas where they could be controlled. It's a very similar situation of settler colonialism happened in our own country. Also want to mention that before the attack of October 7th, which, you know, and most of the people who were killed in that attack were military people. It's now been shown that most of what Israelis said about that was not true. About the babies being butchered, it was all lies. But right before that attack, sometime, I think about maybe 6 months, I forget the exact timing, in Gaza, there was a big protest by Palestinians in Gaza, you know, to change the situation of their lives that have been going on for so many, many years. Israel only allowed enough food. They made an investigation about how much food is necessary for a person to stay alive. And that's the amount of food that was allowed to get into Gaza for all those years.
What was the time period? That time period?
The time period was 17 years before the attack, I believe. So we're going to figure that out. Okay, before the attack happened, the people of Gaza decided to try to march up peacefully to the border where the gates, where the fences were, and then protest, stand there and you know, say, this is rotten, what we're living in, you know, like that, a civil demonstration. Immediately, the Israelis killed 200 of them, shot them down right away. And not to mention all the people who were wounded. The Israelis purposely shot people, the ones who managed to live through that were wounded, you know, shot in the legs. So you can imagine, it's not justifiable to kill innocent people. There's no question about it. But can you imagine how these people felt? The tension, the pressure of their lives. It's not a surprise what was Hamas led, and Hamas and the other groups. As Fadi said, there are other groups too in Gaza. So that's
let me build on that as well. You look at if you look at the West Bank, Gaza and the West Bank, these are two separate demographics. They're separated now. You can't go from one to the other unless you go through, I don't know how many checkpoints. In the West Bank, where I'm from, there is not one day, again, forget about October. I'm going backwards when supposedly there was no October. But there was, every day there's an October 7 for the Palestinians. Every day there's a Palestinian kid, not an adult, and you can't even justify that, but let's talk about the kids walking to school, an Israeli soldier, or these lovely settlers that come from all over the world, sniping Palestinian children down. You never hear of that. You never hear of that. Never, it'll be breaking news on CNN that 2 Palestinian children were killed by Israeli sniper in Ramallah. But if it was 2 Israeli children sniped down by a Palestinian, they will make the news. I wonder why. If you just Google how many Palestinian children were killed in the West Bank alone, historically, it'll give you all the information. The Israeli human rights, Beit Salem, it's called Beit Salem. So you have the UN Human Rights Watch, there's the Israeli Human Rights Watch called Beit Salem. They document every instance when the Israeli army has demolished a home, killed the Palestinians, how many arrests have taken place, and all the human rights violations. They're 100% documented online with facts and figures. Those things lead to animosity over time. When my older brother, who lives in Iowa now, left there in 1988, was not allowed to come back for 20 years. You ask yourself why. American, his name is Shadi, S-H-A-D-I. Why is this guy who went to the US, studied at Ohio State and Georgia Tech, had a PhD in electrical engineering, wanted to go back, he left in 87, I think in 92, 93, don't quote me exactly, wanted to go back, see my mom and dad, we were still living there. And they literally, he landed in Tel Aviv, they put him on the same plane and sent him back for no reason. He tried to come back the year after, no reason. If you want to send me back, at least give me a reason. Tell me why. What did I do wrong? I left here, I was 17 or 18 after high school. I didn't do anything. I didn't even throw a rock at an Israeli tank. So I went to college abroad as an American, not an American name, just an American passport, not a mic. That's a difference. And came back, sent back. Came again, sent back. Came again, sent back. Flew to Jordan to try different entrance, sent back. 20 years later, after hiring an Israeli attorney who goes through, and I don't know how much he paid him, he would not tell us. He paid him, he must have paid a load of money. He said, I'm going to try and pay an Israeli attorney to get me in because I really want to see my sick dad. That's really, I just want to go see him. That's all. It took him 2 years after he paid whatever the amount is. And that Israeli attorney went through the Israeli military court and said, why can't you let this person in? We need to know. He has the right to know. As an American, they said, we don't know. The Israeli army would not tell us. The guy never did anything. Eventually, after fighting with them so long, they said, he can come in 20 years later, but he has to come and do an interview with us. He came in, flew with his kids. He wanted someone to be with him just in case he vanishes. So he came in, sat down with him for, 4 or 5 hours. They took every single detail about his life. Where did you go to college? What did you study? What did you do? Your wife, your kids, everything. And now you can go in. 20 years later. That type of life causes animosity. It causes hatred. You create hatred, not me. I didn't create hatred. Your occupation of me caused me to be hateful of you. Because if you're not doing this to me, why would I be hateful to you? Americans over there, by the way, there's no hatred against Americans, even though the perception is Americans are hatred. There is no hatred against Americans, hatred of the American government for what it does, but not the American people, not the Ukrainian people, not the Russian people. If the Israelis tomorrow were replaced by the Russians, the Palestinians will still hate them. If the Israelis tomorrow were replaced by Egyptians, they will still hate them. If the Palestinians were replaced by South Africans, they'll still hate them. Why? Because of the treatment, not because of the faith. I don't hate them, they didn't do anything to me.
We need to stop, I'm sorry, because it's getting so late. I'm sorry, you have one, go ahead.
Yeah, how did you get an American passport?
Oh,
My parents, since they lived here for 25 years, and the whole family got the passports.
by the way, you know, you're paying for all this.
That's what I was just gonna say. I feel
All
very
of you are
hopeless,
paying for it.
very hopeless because I know I can't stop paying taxes. And the thousands of dollars that little old me pays is paying.
Yeah.
I'm paying for all those weapons, all those bombs, all those rockets. We're supporting Israel totally. And I can't stop paying taxes. So what, is there any solution?
Oh, it's very, very good point. I think, you know, Jewish Voice for Peace, you know, that we belong and are active in, would just like all of you maybe to tell other people, if you agree with this, what you just said, and what we've tried to present, you know, make it known to people whom you know, because we need more support. All of us do. The Palestinians, of course, need the support of people. And it won't change much until we change our own country, the US. When we begin to change, it won't happen in these 4 years, I'm sure. At least not from the top. But from the bottom up, we can put on a lot of pressure. Fadi, you want to say something?
I think really we have to pressure these elected officials, because you cannot say as an elected official, doesn't matter, you know, political affiliation aside, Republican, Democrat, Independent, the same. If you want to be the nation that you portray who you are, a nation of fair, equal treatment, respect for human rights, all these buzzwords that we throw out there on the wall, selectively. We use them in the case of Ukraine. We got to defend Ukraine, okay? But then Saudi Arabia goes and does something and, you know, bombs Yemen, kills 100,000 Yemeni kids, starves Yemen, the famine in Yemen. Nobody here knows anything about Yemen. I don't, but it was a bad situation as of 3-4 years ago. But Saudi Arabia is our friend. We get oil from them. We have business. We can't critique them. So these politicians, this unfair, unequal, two-faced approach is really why we're in this situation. It's not about Palestine. It's really about an overall holistic approach. You want to be a politician to represent me? You better be a fair politician across the board. And you should stop taking money from AIPAC, because when you take money from this organization, now you kind of really belong to them.
Now, what organization?
AIPAC, AIPAC, American Israeli Public Action Committee, I think. It's a PAC. It's the largest PAC in the US. It's the strongest PAC in the US. You've never heard of AIPAC? If you look at senators and politicians, almost, well, the biggest ones of them, most of them, if you look at who are their donors are, AIPAC is almost practically either one or two. Marco Rubio, second one, AIPAC. What's his name? Chuck Schumer, first or second one, AIPAC. Biden, first or second one, AIPAC. It's the largest donor for every senator and congressman. And they do it bluntly, they do it out in the open, and they do it through their name, AIPAC, and many other small PACs, and even through individual contributions. They don't care. So when this And by the way, who was it? Which American president that wanted to stop AIPAC and have him registered as a foreign entity?
Yeah.
One president wanted to have AIPAC registered as a foreign entity. I'm going to Google it now. And AIPAC said no. I think it was Kennedy.
Yeah, I think it was Kennedy.
It was Kennedy because they said even a few months later, Kennedy was like gone. So I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying you make your own conclusions. But the AIPAC is very powerful. So as a politician, you take money from AIPAC, who are you going to vote for? What decisions are you going to make? It's blatantly obvious. So I
And
think
it's the bureaucracy that is the secret government. Yeah, right. Sorry.
We want to thank you very much, you
Thank
know.
you.
for-
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
yeah, thank you guys. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for coming.